Am I live? I think I'm live. Oh, yeah. I think I'm live. This is good. Hopefully, whatever shirt I was wearing last week is not this one, because I'm not entirely sure that I remember what I was wearing last week. And I don't really watch the podcasts after we do them. Hello, is anyone out there? Yes. Oh, hey. All right, cool. Yes. I am live with a Nick and You podcast just for the first half hour because Brian is busy right now taking a shower and getting his dinner started. Otherwise, he's going to be eating at crazy Puerto Rican hours like I do, you know? So, welcome to the RCR Podcast. This is number 44. Hello, everyone. I've been looking forward to seeing you guys again. And basically, I am here to talk about my week because it was a very weird week in the general sense. Okay, so I went to this place over the weekend. Well, first of all, let me just preface this by saying that I was invited by my friend Duncan, whose Kia we did a while back, might have been a year ago, I'm not entirely sure, and I don't even remember what friggin' model of Kia we did, but basically he's a photographer in addition to all the other various hats he wears, and so he's the one who reminded me that upcoming this past weekend was the Duryea Hill Climb in Reading, Pennsylvania. So I wasn't doing anything, and so I told him I would go out there and meet him. And once I got out there, I tried to... Yes, the Spectra. It was the Kia Spectra. Thank you. Sorry, I brain fart when I'm live here, just because it's the first time I'm doing this solo. So basically, I went out and met Duncan there. And as I got there... Well, first of all, Reading, Pennsylvania basically has no parking, which is problematic in its own way. But anywhere that you can find a park, I mean, you're either parking on a major incline or a obnoxious decline. It's just, you're always going to have your parking brake on either way. But ultimately, I went there to meet him, and I will have to read what ended up happening from the following post that I made about it, because it was almost something that I kind of had to write about, and it had nothing to do with being at the show, really, because once I got there, I realized I couldn't make a video out of it because the pits were too loud. The lighting was all bad because we're in a place where there is almost like a canopy of trees. It's like a green ceiling. It's wild. But once I got there, I was basically unintentionally involved in a high-speed chase. Like, I wasn't the one doing the running, but basically I got there and I got cut off by this dude in a skull mask riding an ATV. And all of a sudden, that guy in the skull mask was suddenly followed by 6 or 7 other dudes on like dirt bikes or sport bikes, basically. And they were all zooming around, and all of a sudden I was like encircled by these people who had this look in their eye of like malicious intent. And so I'm not entirely sure if it's about me or they're going to do something to me. And I was more confused than scared, actually, because I had like a coffee in my hand and I had my GoPro in the other hand. And I was just like, if I got like beat up or robbed right now, that would be such an inconvenience to me. But it's just strange. Basically, here is the post that I made that kind of explains what happened in a more succinct way than me just doing blah, blah, blah. Oh, I guess I didn't explain where Mr. Regular is, but he's off taking a shower and getting his dinner started. Oh, wait, no, I did explain that, but I forget sort of things that I say because I don't know, maybe it's part of getting old. Maybe it's just I'm not good at this. So anyway, this is story time with the Roman, my Saturday at the Duryea Hill Climb. So I arrive late to the Duryea Hill Climb, and as I work my way up the obnoxiously strenuous incline towards the pits, I'm suddenly surrounded by a group of 8 dudes in skull masks riding ATVs and sports bikes. The men circle me, and I'm more confused than scared, to be honest. Turns out, it had nothing to do with me. They were fleeing from a police cruiser who was tearing ass after these dudes as they kicked up dirt and left deep depressions in the soft earth around City Park. They weren't circling around me on purpose. They were just hanging a U-turn once they saw the cruiser roaring ass down the boulevard. The officer picked the leader on his ATV and gave chase through the crowded lot as the group collectively whooped, hollered, and revved. The officer radioed for assistance and gave chase up the incline, finding himself embroiled in a hill climb of his own. The collective orchestra of fart can exhaust sounded like the evacuated bowels of a dying dragon. The sound receded into the distance, going, gone. As I entered the pits, a group of competitors and spectators were still talking about what they just witnessed. Somehow, it had overtaken the Duryea hill climb itself as the topic they were likely to talk about over a hasty dinner of Angus burgers and new Yingling Gold, which I still haven't tried, but whatever. A man who looked like Great Value Dale Earnhardt loudly proclaimed, "This is why those people get shot." A woman nearby, voice like nails on a rusty catalytic converter, rejoined, "Yeah, and then it's all the police's fault." They seemed surprised by the degeneracy, and I wonder if they've ever been to Reading before. A Gotham where the murders of Thomas and Martha Wayne give birth to nothing. Only skull masks, Taylor Swift, and the vague hope that maybe it'll someday get better, even if that day is not today. The end. But yeah, it kind of seems like a bigger deal than it actually would have been, but it was strange in the sense that it wasn't until I was a decent amount of time later that I felt kind of rattled by it. So, but it came and went, and I realized that that's kind of how my anxiety's gotten a bit better over time, in that I can't really, like, back in the day, if that had happened to me, I would have like dropped the coffee, dropped the GoPro. I would have been frozen in silence instead of having this reaction of annoyance that it was inconveniencing my day, because I already hate going up inclines, because for as much cardio as I do now, I still hate doing cardio, which is the thing. I don't know that I'll ever get to a point where I like doing cardio at all. But yeah, that was kind of a strange thing for me. This is also the last week that I get to hang out with my nephew before he goes back to school. So we've just been shooting videos for our personal YouTube channel called Limited Time Roman, and where we review limited edition foods and basically go around and do foolish things. It's just a random kind of thing, but hey, check it out if you like it. I did a vlog on the channel last week that got a couple comments on it about it was basically a vlog about how to deal with getting ghosted, and I basically didn't really think about the effect that it kind of has on the psyche when it initially happens, but also how it just basically is not as big of a deal as the mind wants to make it. So I don't know, that's something to check out if you're into checking those things out. But I think my issue today that made today kind of a weird day for me was after I dropped my nephew off, I was driving home and I passed the cemetery where my grandmother's buried, and she's right next to my cousin who died in 2003 when he was killed by a drunk driver. And I mentioned this in my New Zealand journal about basically how my grandmother passed away while we were over in New Zealand, and we were really close. I would see her like almost every other day. So, and I would like take her lunch, or I would, make tea at her place. And so losing her was really hard, and not being there was even harder. But I just wanted to kind of have my family's forgiveness for not being there. And I realized that they did understand, like, hey, he's working. Hey, he can't just grab a ticket and take it back. But, my thing is that when I got back from New Zealand, I never went to go visit the grave site because I needed to sort of build up to it, because the entire month of January was terrible, you know, but I talk about it in that diary, but I don't need to go over it again here. But needless to say, like, I lost a friend to my stupidity. I lost another friend to an overdose, and then I lost my grandmother, and that was a really hard couple of weeks. And what sucks about it is that I think I had convinced myself that I had processed all of these things. And so when I was driving by the cemetery, I made the impulsive decision that I was going to turn over and just, you know, visit. Basically, I didn't have any flowers with me or anything, but Andrew Oliver, Gormless is basically awkward, but Gormless is basically me. It's British slang from over 100 years ago, where it basically means awkward, but in a stupid way, or in a way that's conflated with stupidity. But over time, the stupidity portion of it has been dropped in favor of just meaning awkward. So gormless and charming is kind of like a phrase that I use to sort of describe awkward people. But anyway, I went and found the site, because I knew she was next to my cousin. And granted, I hadn't like visited my cousin's grave site, but ultimately, if I see a place once, I'm pretty sure I can get right back to exactly where the spot is years and years later. I mean, my own father's grave site, I would very rarely visit, but I always knew, even though I was like only 6 when it happened. When I got older and was a teenager and started to go visit, or to try anyway, I knew exactly where it was. And here, I had trouble finding it, and I was about to give up because I was basically looking for fresh earth. Because in my mind, it hasn't been 8 months, you know? And it has been, but for whatever reason, I haven't really processed the passage of time. And so when I was about to leave, that's when I saw it, and I saw her name on there, and then it all becomes vivid and clear. And I think I was okay until I realized that grass had grown over the spot. I felt like a bad grandson in that moment, because like I let grass grow over the plot before I visited. And I don't know, it was hard. And I had a long talk there. And I know that's a really cliche thing to do. You know, it's almost like the kind of shit they do in movies. But I sat down and I just sort of had this talk with my grandmother, that I was sorry and that I missed her and that I loved her. And I came to that place where like I needed to visit, not necessarily to pay my respects, but to be able to process it. Because I think like I cried in New Zealand, I cried when I got home, and then I didn't cry again. And so I just had to like go sit there and talk until like it sort of came out, and whatever was left, it's like a juicer, you know, you're trying to get the last bit of juice out, and that pain is always going to be there. Like there's always going to be juice, but I can't bottle it up anymore. You know, there's so many things there's so many things from that month that I'm hurting about, and so many things that I dream about, that I have those dreams about, that are almost, and they're not nightmares, you know. I think about, you know, both my friends, and I think about the things that I've lost, and some of it's my fault and a lot of it isn't, but it's being able to accept that there are things that happen beyond your control. and that all you can do is kind of keep fighting, it's getting through the day, because getting through the day means you get to keep having days, not giving up means that you get to keep visiting your grandmother's site and working through whatever your own damage is. And so I came out of it on the other side feeling a lot better, even though I had, shed tears and had spoken my piece. And I talked to my cousin too, even though he and we fought all the time, like both verbally but also physically. And we didn't get along that great, but that doesn't mean, you don't love the guy. And he was a huge part of my childhood. And so I'm like, we were both kids, figuring things out in the world, and then you pass. But I'd like to think that, even though you didn't get to see me become a man, that part of the reason I feel like I'm as good of a man as I am is because of you, because I had that great childhood that I can look back on that was helping to formulate this weird, wonderful person that I've become. And I felt like I owed him a debt of gratitude. And it's hard to kind of think of it in terms of people that you've lost, but I don't know, man. You can't let the loss be the only thing that you remember. So that was my day. And then as I was driving home, it started to rain and I had to listen to something. And the thing that I started to listen to, I put on Spotify, and I have 3 different versions of You've Lost That Loving Feeling by the Righteous Brothers. And they're all stacked up with each other right after Heat of the Moment by Asia. I never meant to be so bad to you. It's just, all I want to do is kind of like want to clap along with the, now remember when we used to dance. But, sorry for peeking. But yeah, I started listening to all 3 versions of You've Lost That Loving Feeling. And for whatever reason, it actually put me in a really good mood. I don't know what it is about that song. Maybe it's just like thinking about Top Gun, although I don't associate it with Top Gun. I associate it with my favorite scene from a season of Survivor, which was season 6 in the Amazon, where the men's tribe basically break into song about that, or break into that song. And for some reason, like, that always stuck with me as like one of those television moments that really seared its way into my brain. But yeah. I've decided that of the versions of You've Lost That Loving Feeling that I have, that I essentially can't decide which one is my favorite, because you've got the Elvis version, you've got the Hall & Oates version, and you've got the original, and they're each great in their own different separate ways. I mean, part of it is that I've been on a huge Elvis kick ever since I watched The Searchers, that HBO documentary. This is a 2-parter about Elvis, and that was in a fascinating look at like the man and his artistry and his musicianship. That's why like Elvis is one of the people that I talk about when I was writing the whole intertextuality spiel, because I feel like there's so much intertextuality embodied in Elvis himself, because so much of his persona is an amalgamation of those musicians who came before him, but also so many musicians who came after him are like this weird amalgamation of Elvis. And that's what's fantastic about it, and what I find interesting about Elvis, and all that other, it's, I don't know, it's just, I like listening to the King. So yeah. But yeah, big weekend at the movies, in the sense that, okay, so I'm not a romantic comedy guy, like, in the least, but my mother, let me answer real quick. Colt 45, Tracklist Bro 2 is not in production, but I want to sort of record something new at some point. I was talking to Brian about having him feature on an upcoming track with his drums, electronic drums, because I'm brain farting today. And that would be great, you know. But I don't really think I feel like so much of the emotions that I need to get out, I would be able to get out in song, or that I should be trying to get out in song. But the issue is largely that I have been in such a mind frame of writing music for comedy that I almost wouldn't know how to write a song being serious. Like Oi from Trackless Bro is pretty much the closest I've come to writing like a real serious song. Although I guess like Different Kinds of Stars, like last year's Christmas song, was kind of serious. And and Drifting in the Snow, which was the year before that, was kind of serious. But other than that, it's kind of hard to really write a serious song without having a sort of undercutting of satire, you know, like Inside of You, which is on Trackless Bro, is like the end. It's written as though it's an end of the relationship song, but really it's about letting go of your first car that you love. And, you know, yeah, it's writing songs is hard when you're trying to put an authentic, painful part of you into it. That's why, like, I can't write songs about, you know, women that I've like split with, that I can't write about like my grandmother's passing, because it's all too real. But then I realize the realness is what makes art in a way. But I would just as soon do a diary entry, you know, or a diary video about it than to write a song about it. But long story short, like, there are other things that I would like to write for like musically, and maybe some of it would trend towards the more serious. I would just have to get into a different headspace, because my headspace has very much been in that Weird Al, Bo Burnham comedy musician space, and that's always been easier for me. But I went to the movies this weekend, big surprise, and I saw Crazy Rich Asians, which is a romantic comedy. It's a bog standard romantic comedy. But see, here's the thing, is that for as standard a comedy as Crazy Rich Asians is, its production design is so vivid and sumptuous that I could almost like taste the food in the marketplace on the screen. Like, it's such a well made movie, you know. It doesn't reinvent the wheel with its script. As a matter of fact, I think the script is probably the worst part about it, or the weakest part about it. I shouldn't say worst, because I actually really like the movie. I also, oh hey, Tony Airlines, nice to see ya, good to see you here. But I think one of the things that I found to be difficult about it is how much exposition it sort of just dumps on top of you at the beginning. But then it's very much a sort of average sort of romantic comedy setup. It's a fish out of water story. But I think, you know, the music is interesting. The production design is absolutely gorgeous for Crazy Rich Asians, to the point where I could see it being nominated for an Oscar for production design. You know, everything is so lavish. Everything is so, you know, the costume design is exquisite. There is a wedding scene in this movie that I promise you, it's going to be really fun to see people try to recreate this wedding for their own nuptials without having the $30 million budget that this movie had. Because there's no way that you can do the wedding that they did on a budget, but I know people are going to try, because that's it. The oohs and ahs that it got in my packed theater pretty much tell the whole story, I think. But yeah. No, Jonathan, I have not seen The Meg. I might catch a matinee at some point this weekend. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I don't normally do the animal disaster movies, but it looks like a fun one, and it's gotten decent reviews, to the point where, well, decent reviews in the sense that, like, if you know what you're there to see, then that's what you're going to see. And you'll be satisfied with that. But ultimately, Crazy Rich Asians, I think its production design deserves to be seen on the big screen. you will feel things even if you don't want to. You know, I think it's hard to come out of this movie without being at least a little bit in love with Constance Wu, who is just so beguiling in this movie. Not just like visually, but I mean like in terms of the way she portrays her character, because this could have been just a more typical My Big Fat Greek Wedding type of story, which I love My Big Fat Greek Wedding, don't get me wrong. But it could have just been another one of those, oh, my family doesn't accept the new person that I want to be in love with, blah, blah, blah. And I almost feel like she elevates it with her performance. But ultimately, yeah, go support diversity on the big screen, because this is huge for representation. I don't even care that it's not, you know, Latinos, because Lord knows it's like, I don't even look Latino. So I think just all diversity on the big screen, it's just a rising tide lifts all ships. So that's great. And I've not seen Slender Man, JSB, but Takar Kane, I have seen Won't You Be My Neighbor. So that was a really wonderful documentary that I felt captured the spirit of Fred Rogers, and that if we were ever in a position where humanity had to nominate one person, living or dead, to show the aliens why humans shouldn't be destroyed, it would be Fred Rogers. We didn't deserve Fred Rogers. He was a man. I'm not going to say like he was the perfect guy. The documentary explains that he had his own he struggles with self-doubt, and that, you know, maybe he wasn't always the perfect guy. Maybe he wasn't always as understanding to his fellow man, but that he eventually came around, you know. It's one of the best films of the year, and I would go see Won't You Be My Neighbor. I was just talking with Brian about possibly doing a Mr. Rogers type thing for non sequitur in a video of just kind of Mr. Regular's neighborhood, but I'm not even sure what you know, the different things that are part of his entrance would be, you know, because Mr. Rogers, he, you know, switches out his shoes and
don't you frickin' crash.
And there we go. And also, you know, feeds his fish and all that other stuff. But yeah, let's see what else is here. Thoughts on the upcoming season of Sunny in Philadelphia? I am kind of it's one of those shows that could go on indefinitely, and I don't mind. I would have minded if Glenn Howerton weren't coming back, but apparently he will be back for most of the episodes. Like, obviously he's going to be missing for some of them, but that's true of like almost any season where you're going to get episodes that are focused mainly on Frank or mainly on different combinations of characters. That's just how you keep a show from getting stale after a while. But yeah. Other things. I was kind of in this I was basically on the forum for the MCU, or like the subreddit for it. And there were a lot of people who were going over of like, oh, well, what if they bring the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and blah, blah, blah. And my thing is that the Fantastic Four are so inherently corny that you almost have to set it in the 1960s, but then you end up with yet another like time shifted Marvel property where you have to explain why this team this hero from the past is suddenly in our present. They had the excuse with Captain America. I'm sure they'll find an excuse with Captain Marvel, but I don't really know how you do it with the Fantastic Four unless you sort of go through like they fly through some kind of time vortex. But the long and short of it is that my dream cast for the Fantastic Four, it would be John Krasinski as Reed Richards, his real life wife Emily Blunt as Sue Storm or the Invisible Woman, either Ansel Elgort from Baby Driver for Johnny Storm, or Taron Egerton from the Kingsman movies as Johnny Storm, and then dude, I would just go with John Cena for Ben Grimm, because at this point, why not? Like, it's just whatever. And then for Doctor Doom, I mean, Mads Mikkelsen has already been in the MCU, so I would go with, like, I don't know, Alexander Skarsgård or somebody like that. But yeah, I'm sure that's something everyone was dying to hear my opinions on for absolutely no reason. But yeah. Pack C, Fortnite. I don't play Fortnite, but my nephew is absolutely obsessed with it, and always doing the dances, and always I don't know, he's obsessed with the game, and I don't really know what separates Fortnite from PUBG, if you know what I mean. I mean, I don't necessarily get, because aren't they all sort of based around the same central concept that it's a battle royal that you're dropped into in the middle of nowhere with like 80 other people, and then it's basically last man standing? Like, isn't it basically the same concept, except one has semi-realistic graphics and the other one is cartoonish? Like, I don't know. It's a strange thing. Let me just scroll through here and see if there were any questions, because I got so lost in my story that my various stories that I kind of lost track of the live stream. Although this isn't super chat, we will be back a bit later with super chat. We're going to take like a 15-minute break after I'm done so that I could upload this to the Shout engine and Brian can enjoy his dinner, and then we can come back fresh and you guys can actually ask us, questions about things you actually want to know about, like cars, because yeah. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird podcast, I suppose. Oh, okay. So I went to the gym, and the weirdest thing, hey, it's Mr. R in the house.
Nothing like alcohol on an empty stomach.
Oh, hey, I'm drinking a macchiato right now.
Ooh.
At what, 9 p.m.? Because
It's going to be up to like 3.
Yeah, well, I was up till 3 last night anyway, watching the new season of Marvel's Luke Cage, which, Bulletproof Man Living in Harlem, which it's
Got
a very
renewed. This season 2.
Yeah, this is season 2, and
It's a big break.
Yeah,
Between the seasons.
Yeah, well, it's a year, more or less.
Oh, it was only a year. Oh.
Actually, I think it was a year and a half. Now that I think of it. But also, yes, Hourly B, I have heard about the Ford versus Ferrari movie in production. I'm really excited about it because I feel like it's actually going to get a sort of serious Hollywood biopic look. You get, I think, oh man, who's playing Carol Shelby? I forget. I want to say it's Christian Bale because I know he's in it, but I'm not entirely sure. But one of my favorite actors, John Bernthal, which ties into the Netflix MCU because he's the Punisher, is going to be playing Lee Iacocca, which is just delightful. Doesn't look a single loving thing like him, even as a young Iacocca. But maybe if they do prosthetics, who knows?
Right, because Lee Iacocca had a round face.
Yeah, very round face.
Chiseled.
Yeah,
it's not.
Except maybe his chin is a little like, there's a good hunk of chin there, of like man chin. But he's not doing the whole Franklin Roosevelt. Like, he's not rocking the FDR chin. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that movie. I'm also looking forward to Driven, the John DeLorean movie with Lee Pace and Jason Sudeikis, and it's like, that looks really interesting, and I don't remember if it's coming out this year or not, but it's something to look forward to. I also rented Deadpool 2, which I think has the greatest opening credit sequence of any movie that I've seen, because basically it's a very emotional movie, strangely enough. Like, I wasn't expecting to maybe get a little choked up while I was watching Deadpool 2. It's weird. It's such a good movie, but the opening credit sequence, they're trying to do the big grand epic Celine Dion thing, of they get an original song and they bring in Celine Dion to sing it, and then they do these Bond style opening credits for Deadpool.
Oh yeah.
But the song, which is called Ashes, is an unironically excellent song, and it's played straight. Like the song is played straight. It's the credits that are, it's the juxtaposition between the seriousness of the song and the moment that precedes those opening credits.
I gotta go check on my chicken.
The weirdness of Deadpool, sort of taking the Flashdance shower with bullets. But yeah, it's just it's a great movie. Which is funny because I had watched it, and then the next day I basically put the whole soundtrack on my Spotify. Well, that's not really funny, or weird or strange or anything, but I was listening to it while I was doing a lot of my writing, and I took a brief break from writing to watch SummerSlam this past Sunday because I don't know, I'm a glutton for punishment, and I had to catch up on NXT from the night before because takeovers are always good. NXT takeovers never disappoint ever. But yes, I'll stop talking about pro wrestling now. The green toes are because these are jump socks from the trampoline park that I take my nephew to. So we went trampolining today, and basically you can't enter unless you have the jump socks. So, it's like an extra $2 on top of the entry, and then you get to keep them. So whatever. But I didn't realize till I got here that I never took the socks off. Like my other pair of socks are still in the car. So man, it's whatever. But Alex Pelk, Nick, advice please. Moving to an apartment to go to Pitt. First time living away from home. Any advice for living on your own or college in general? Love you guys. Enjoy it. Because I think part of living alone, and even when I lived with other people, I was living alone. I was very much a person who enjoyed his solitude and didn't really like being disturbed. And I think one of the benefits of living alone, I don't even live alone now. I have a roommate, but the whole living alone part that I miss about it is just being able to like walk around your house naked, or just, just enjoy things, enjoy exploration of the freedom of being away from home and being on your own, and realizing that now you have to rely on yourself in a way, or get used to the idea of relying on yourself. Let that be something that guides you moving forward. You will stumble and you will fall, but eventually you'll be better off for the experience. You'll enjoy your day in the sun known as adulthood. That is a struggle for all of us every single day. But hey, we fight through it because we're grown-ups, and that's what grown-ups do. And college is probably going to be one of the best experiences of your life if my experience was any indication, which I don't even know if my experience was really even par for the course for anyone else, but I had a really great time, made a lot of great friends, learned a lot of really interesting shit, and so I wouldn't trade those years for the world. And I hope you do great at Pitt, and best of luck to you.
Yeah, best of luck.
Yeah.
Well, my dinner is almost done.
All right, you about ready to super chat it up?
Yep, we'll take a little break. I have to go reset and turn Super Chat on.
And I was just going to say, I'm going to set up the put this on the Shout Engine page.
Crap.
So, I'll grab it from YouTube later then.
Sorry, Nick.
Oh, don't worry about it. I have no problem doing this because I'm gonna be like, well, obviously with a macchiato, I'm not going to sleep when I get home anyway. But just a heads up that there might be like a 1-day delay, just because, I because I said so. I don't know. But thank you so much for joining me. I know this is outside the standard podcast format, but it meant a lot that anybody was willing to listen, and it's just great to be able to talk to you guys. So we will be back in, I don't know, let's just say like 5-10 minutes. Yep. And stay right here on the channel. Once we go live, you'll get the notification and Super Chat will be on, and you can ask us anything.